Welcome to Season 2 of Producer Points. My name is Justin Gamella, and I'll be your host. I'm a producer and songwriter who's had the honor of working with some of the best in the industry. This season, we're diving even deeper into one-on-one conversations with producers, mixers, songwriters, and artists, exploring their unique journeys, creative process, and insights that shape great music. Join me for real talks, straight from the studio, where music and life intersect. This is Producer Points. Today on Producer Points, I'm beyond excited to sit down with an artist, songwriter, and producer whose career has been a constant source of inspiration for me. From his time in Envy on the Coast, a band that left an indelible mark on the alternative rock scene, to his solo project Vows, where his artistry continues to evolve in breathtaking ways, he's constantly pushed musical boundaries. Beyond creating unforgettable music for his own projects, he's also making waves as a producer and writer for other artists, not to mention his incredible work in film and sync. He's someone I've admired from afar for years, and having him here is truly special. Let's dive into the creative world of Ryan Hunter. Dude, thanks for being here.
Dude, thank you for that unbelievable intro.
No problem. I meant every word of it.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
man.
we never
Thank
really
you.
spoken about it because it is like an awkward thing to bring up. But like, Envy on the Coast was a real big band for me. Mostly, I think like you guys showed me that like, oh, like you can do music. You know, you were the first band that I saw was like local that blew up, and like it really inspired me to like do that. So I wanted to thank you on camera and record for showing me that.
I mean, that's massive because I know what those bands were for me.
Yeah.
You know, like I totally remember seeing guys get out of a van for the first time and being like, that's what I want to do.
Yep.
You know, so I know how important that is of like it making it tangible and like realistic to reach for something. So I'm honored and thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, no. But I want you to tell your story. We start the podcast off with our guests telling us how they got their start in music. So I'd love to hear from your point of view.
I'll say this, like the earliest like musical memory I have that would be like dabbling in recording and what we all do now is I remember my parents had an old karaoke machine.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I remember I had my drum kit and my guitar, and I figured out that if I put one cassette in and recorded a part on one side and then played it really loud and took the mic from the karaoke machine and basically did my first like multi-track recording that way.
I did the same thing. It wasn't with a karaoke machine. It was like a 2-tape like stereo.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's so funny.
Yeah. And I still remember that feeling of hearing me playing with myself and being like, oh my God.
Yeah.
You know? So that's like the earliest memory. And then, you know, as you mentioned, like I grew up in that same scene on Long Island that you did. And I was really fortunate to witness a lot of stuff happen firsthand. It wasn't until I started touring that I realized how special that was, where you go to other places in the Midwest where nothing's happening. Yeah. You know, there's just like kids firing off potato guns in a parking lot at, 10 at night, and that's it. And it was like, oh man, like we live somewhere where they're writing about this, you know? So I saw a lot of that firsthand, and I don't know, man, it's kind of crazy. Like as an adult, you calculate your decisions and you think about things, you think things through, you know, because you have to.
Right.
And sometimes I think about just like how one track minded I was in this like, I'm gonna do that without any consideration of like, A, if it doesn't work.
Right.
B, like, what do these people make for a living? Like what, like no thought about anything other than like, that is what I want to do. That
seems great.
Yeah. And just like was obsessed with the idea of just creating art. You know, as from a very early age, it was like, I just want to make records. Yeah. I just want to make like the whole thing, you know, the liner notes and the album cover, like the whole experience of making a record was like so incredible to me. And so, I played in bands. I jumped around with whatever anybody needed. It was like, cool, you need a drummer, I'll play drums. You need a bass player, I'll play bass. And
that's crazy.
Yeah, and then found, a group of people that it was like, okay, everybody else wants to really do this as well. And we put stuff on the internet, very early version of the internet.
MySpace era.
MySpace, Pure Volume era.
Pure Volume, God.
Yeah.
What a time.
Yeah, man.
Crazy.
A much simpler time.
Yeah.
Caught the ear of Will Noon, who played drums in a band called Stray Light Run. Yep. And then later played with Fun. and probably some other projects I'm forgetting. Yeah. But Will found our stuff and he was like, I like you guys. I want to help. And he introduced us to basically the people that were with us for the entire tenure of our band from square one. And it all just kind of took off from there.
Yeah.
We were lucky that we had good mentors. We had people who were like very much guiding our decision making, and we had an early distrust for the music industry. Which
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, which guided our decisions. Our whole thought process was like, we can't trust any of this. It was like the dawn of the 360 deal. So it was like everything was real.
They were really bending bands over.
Yeah.
Back in the day. And like people were just like, you know, we're all just dumb young kids. Just being like, sure, I get to do this. Like, take everything you want.
Yeah. And the number looked big, but
Right.
they were taking from other pieces of the pie.
Right. You just like didn't quite understand until it was like, wait, when I had lunch with you, I was paying for it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was very lucky that I had Justin Beck from Glassjaw was my next door neighbor, and I used to annoy the shit out of him and just ask him a million questions, and he was kind enough to kind of, you know, he went through the ringer being on a major label, and he bred the distrust in me for sure. But so that landed us in a place where we were like, cool, the only thing we can control is our live show. Like that's the only thing that is completely like in a bottle hours. So let's just tour an ungodly amount each year because we know we can win people over with our show. Like that we have dialed. So we don't have to depend on marketing or any of the other stuff.
Right.
Beck already taught me that all bands are t-shirt companies in that world. He's just like, don't worry about record sales. Like you're selling t-shirts. And so we were like, cool, tour and sell t-shirts. Got it.
Yeah.
And that was our business plan. And it worked in that era.
Yeah, I mean, you guys were like full-time touring for what, like almost 10 years? Was it that long? Or
Less
just
than that.
Just under.
Yeah, it was less than that.
It seems like so long when we were that young, but it's like, wait, I did the math. It's like, no, it wasn't that long. But
no, it wasn't that long. It was like probably 6 or 7, I would say.
So crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's tough to pick a start date too, because it's like it started happening in high school, and then like I think
because you guys like started to go to college for a little bit.
Yeah, we were Sal and I were at Hofstra,
right.
And I remember it was mostly to appease my parents. You know, I knew what I wanted to do, but they were like, you can't just not go. Right. You cannot go when you have a reason to not go. Right. So I was missing more and more classes for weekend stuff, and then that first big summer tour happened, and then the phone call came. It was just like, you guys are doing like, I think it was like a month or two with like 30 Seconds to Mars or something in September, and I was like, that's when school starts.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Yeah,
it's like a good problem.
Sorry, yeah. And that was it. It was just like, cool. We never.
You didn't do what I just did and just like stayed in school and failed that semester. Like, I did that,
but I was super checked out. So yeah,
I was like too afraid to tell my dad and my grandparents. Just be like, yeah, I'm gonna go on tour for a month.
So you stayed enrolled, failed because you didn't show up. I mean, I probably would have done it that way too if it wasn't. Yeah, like I guess if it's your distance too, you're in Buffalo.
I was also living in the dorm,
right?
And like, so I needed to be in school, but it was just like,
sure,
yeah. And I think I told my dad like years later, because years later, because it took me 5 years to graduate instead of, you know. Anyway. But it was a good tour. I toured with like, did you know the band, the Versa Emerge? Like it was
I remember that name.
They were signed to like Fueled.
Okay.
Anyway, it was like with that band, it was like the first and only tour I really like did with them. But anyway, little quip on failing instead of. So MV's touring and everything, and then when that project ended, where were you after that?
So I was kind of dabbling in other stuff while Envy was still happening. You know, I had one friend who went into like kind of directing / media route, and he ended up becoming the media director for the Chicago Bulls. And he called me because he followed everything with Envy. Right. He's like, have you ever made music for, you know, anything visual? And I was like, no, but I would love to, you know. So in between one of the tours, he hired me to do a commercial piece. It was like a Derrick Rose commercial or something, and that was like my first taste of like working to picture, which was amazing. Like I was just like stunned by how much power you hold in your ability to shift the feel. Was
it more like film score where it was like, here's the video and we need you to make music for it, you know, or like
that first one? that first one was, I think he showed me early cuts, but he wanted the editors to cut to my music.
Yeah.
So it was like a bit of a back and forth.
Right. Because for our listeners, like sometimes it's like video first and you need to make it for that. And sometimes it's audio first and they follow that.
I've done pretty much all the variations of it.
Yeah.
More often than not, they tell you you're going to get locked picture. Like, don't worry. And then just like everything else, nothing goes according to plan.
Of course.
Yeah. So then you end up shifting things. But yeah, so I dabbled in that while I was still in Envy. And then once that ended, I went further into that world. I did a lot of work with Josh, who was, at the Bulls. And it was just cool because, most organizations probably, at that time had a hard drive where they're just pulling royalty-free shit or whatever. And the Bulls are such an iconic organization and have a entrance theme that everybody knows. Like music and media for them is a big deal. So he had budgets to just
do the thing.
Yeah, to do it. And so I did a lot of pieces for them. I actually did a Welcome to Chicago LeBron piece that obviously no one ever saw. But that was wild.
That's great. So they were probably that close to getting
I watched the decision.
Yeah.
Hoping that he was going to Chicago so that the piece that I made would
go. Oh God.
So that was crazy.
Yeah.
So I was doing that, and then I remember around that time, like prior to that, when I was in a band, I don't know how it was for you. Maybe it was similar, but like I was very much in artist mode when we were recording in studios. Like, did you have interest in recording and producing when you were?
Yeah. So like my first band that like didn't really do anything, that was kind of more like, for lack of a better term here, emo-y.
Okay.
I was like always, I didn't realize I was producing, but I was like making the demos, and then we would like go to the studio where we'd pay like an hourly thing.
Cool.
And like even then, I didn't realize I was producing because I was telling the guy what to do every single time.
Sure.
But then with the band my band Royal Tongues that like actually did stuff, I produced everything.
Gotcha.
So I was always kind of like, I've been producing like, probably actively since I was like 15.
Gotcha.
At that point.
Gotcha. But I think I had a producer tell me that towards the end of Envy, like you're producing, that's what you're doing. But I think for me, it was like I made the creative decisions on the demo that then informed what the producer was doing.
Right.
But I certainly wasn't, I was just so in the zone of being an artist that I wasn't really making decisions on tones or those types of, like I was handing the keys over to the producer to do that.
Well, also like in that era, like the definition of a producer, especially working with bands, was so different.
So different.
It was like they were producers, but the producers were almost always mixing the records and a lot of time mastering them as well. And they were the engineer. Like one of the bigger producers at the time, will use Eric Valentine as an example.
Yeah.
Like that guy is incredible, but he is not what people think of as a producer.
No. And I wasn't interested. Don't get me wrong. I love Eric Valentine.
Yeah, it's just a different thing.
It's a different thing, and I wasn't interested in that. Like, there was something so clinical about the process of, like, and now we record drums, and now we record guitars, and, like, it was so, like I didn't enjoy that.
Yeah.
I was just waiting for my turn to do something. So I say all that to say that I didn't really I hadn't amassed any skills as an engineer / producer in the way that we know of it now. So I remember this shift happening when Envy ended, of like the home studio became a standard thing. It was like the first iteration of the M-Box around that time. So, I had stuff before that. I had like Cakewalk Sonar on a PC probably.
I use Sonar.
Yeah. So I had that like years prior, like an Allen and Heath 16 channel mixer. Yeah. But it wasn't the thing yet. It wasn't like, oh, this is a whole system to make stuff that's, ready to go. Excuse me. So there was that period that I entered after the band ended where it was like, okay, I have to learn how to do this. And I'm sure you went through a bit of this as well, where it was miserable. Like the experience of your tastes are here, the gap that everyone describes. Your tastes are up here, but your abilities are down here, and you're trying to get that gap to close.
Yeah, I just had so much, like my dad, God bless him, he noticed I had an interest in music, and I don't know how he like thought to do this, but like I was always, our hobby together, we would build computers together. So I always had like a really powerful computer, and he like pirated, it wasn't Sonar, it was Nuendo, which was like pre-Cubase.
Amazing.
And he pirated it for me, a bunch of other plugins when I was like 15. So I like had the knowledge. And then like eventually I moved over to Pro Tools and Ableton and stuff. But I don't know, it's probably my ADHD. But like it takes a while, but like I like figuring things out, and like
Sure.
I like puzzles.
Sure.
So for me, it was like as frustrating as it was. I was like, okay, this is something I have to figure out, and I'm still like that today.
That's awesome.
You know, but yeah,
I think it took me a long, like in you saying that, it's like I've described them as puzzles as well, and it took me a long time to get comfortable with that, I suppose, because now I think about all the things that I've learned in the last 4 to 5 years or new skills. But first, it was a very different experience than that first chapter of like. And
I think if someone had just shown me how to do something, I wouldn't have like the knowledge of understanding.
Sure.
I guess, or the knowledge of like, I guess the element of play.
Yeah.
Is then taken out.
Yeah.
And like, I'm so thankful that I had so many years of like, I don't fucking know what I'm doing, and I'm just like trying things.
Totally.
And at some of those things those techniques that I did when I didn't know what the fuck I was doing, I still use today, because I was just like, I just like how this sounds, or like I like what this does, and I do this.
Yep.
And
even if it's not like the right like, quote unquote right way.
Right. Like no one taught me how to do this.
I love that.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad I had those.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, I went into that period, came out the other side of it. That's how I got into like the songwriting producing world back when I was still living in New York. And there's a whole bunch of chapters there, a chapter out here of doing that type of thing here, more scoring work, going back into producing stuff, and then the artist stuff all on the side as all of that's happening. But that's like the short version.
The short version. Dude, this is why I wanted you on the podcast, because you were very humbly, we were texting when you were like, all your guests do a lot of like pop stuff. I don't really do that. I'm like, yeah, I know. That's why I want you on the podcast.
That's awesome.
Because I have plenty of those perspectives. And like, I think it's so important to like show younger producers that, there's more than one way to do the thing.
Sure.
And it's so funny. Like I've so many producers who have come on this podcast. They're like, yeah, I'd love to do more scoring, like, and shit. It's like we all want what we can't have.
Of course.
It's that never ending hunger. And I'm going to ask you plenty about the scoring thing, because I just don't know that world. I have some personal experience with sync and stuff, but
yeah, it's so interesting, man. It's like if there's any voice that's been in my head my whole career and my whole life, it's like watching my peers settle into a lane, right? Like, I mean, even guests who you've had on this podcast are some of those people. Like, I watched Ahmad. We moved out here at the same time, Ahmad and I, and worked together. And then I did like what was his maybe only tour with him. Yeah. Like definitely his first tour. Yeah. I was like, oh, I'm not touring anymore. He's like, oh, no, you are, because we're homies and I need help out there and you've done this before. And I was like, okay, fine. And it was probably the best tour ever, because we did it in like a rental car, and like it was.
He's also such a lovely human.
He's one of the best people I've ever known.
Like, it's like I could imagine like going on tour with him, just being like, "This is wonderful, man."
Dude, it was great.
Yeah,
he was anything that I was like, "Hey, I know this spot," or like we can go off the beaten path. He's like, "Dude, let's go." Just down.
I love him so much.
But I watched him do that, come home and be like, "Cool, that's not for me. I'm going to be a producer." Yeah, like, and it was laser focus for him. And I always had this like constant pivot in my life, and like something got dangled in front of me every time I'd get the focus on one thing. And it definitely made me insecure for a long time. Yeah. And it was only till very recently that I was like, I think it's just going to be like this for you. Right. Like, you're not going to be able to compare your career to any of these other people because this is just your way, is this splintered sort of thing that you've done.
Yeah. Dude, I mean, I learned pretty quickly I did not like touring either. Like, I was doing it because like I love being in a band. I love creating like an artist project. Sure. But touring is not for me. And it's also like, even this podcast is a good example where I've always had this like itch to do it. And I was always like so worried where it's like, oh, well, like, what will my peers think? Sure. Or like, will they see me as like less than because I'm doing a podcast? And I'm like, nah, like, this is just going to and it makes me happy. I love doing this.
That's all that matters.
Right. And it's like, it's okay. And like, funny enough, it's like I get so many I get more compliments on the podcast than I do my production work. I get it. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but
dude, I get it, because the parallel for me is the video stuff that I've done. Yeah. It's the same thing. Is that it's just like more comments on that in the last year than anything else, and it's like cool. Yeah. So I want to talk about your sync and film work a little bit. Sure. I'm curious, how much of your time is really devoted to doing like that kind of work, would you say? It's more the type of thing, it comes in blocks, like in waves, and then I'm fully devoted to it for a chapter. Right. So I didn't really do much of that this last year, but the year prior, it was like 3/4 of my year. And it's like those projects can get crazy. You know, they tell you one timeline and then it's something else entirely, you know, and yeah, they can really like swallow a good portion of the calendar year.
Yeah, I know they're like really intense. You know, with that process, because I'm just so curious about it. You know, let's just talk about film scoring.
Sure.
Just keep it a little bit more contained. Yeah, are you mostly talking to the director? Like, what's the kind of process, or what's even your favorite way to kind of go about doing film scoring?
It's different every time, but yes, I'm directly talking to the director in almost every case, and then like working with editors as we get further along. But on the creative front, the director. So I'll just give you like one example.
Yeah, I'm so curious.
Yeah. So there's one director who I've been working with for a long time, and it is just so standard that a director, when they're working with a cut or whatever, early shots or early footage or whatever, that they're gonna want their editor to drop in music before I've even gotten a call.
Right, I know they put in like kind of temp music just to like get the vibe going.
Yes,
right?
Which is the bane of anybody's existence who's making music, because now you're battling the temp.
Yes,
you know, which I'm sure you've dealt with that with reference tracks.
Yeah, because you're just like used to that.
Exactly.
It's not even that it's better. It's just it's familiar now.
And that's exactly it. It's like, so what I did with the last film that I worked on with this director was at the first conversation that we had of him just letting me know I might have this project coming down the pipeline, I was like, please, before you even have footage, just let me make a bunch of shit.
Right.
Like, and he was like, well, what are you going to work to? I was like, just tell me what you're going to tell your editor to drop in for temp.
Right.
Make me a Spotify playlist of what you are already envisioning here. Like, let's just have creative conversations. Let me get in your head.
Yeah.
And then I don't need visuals. Like, let me just make what is essentially the equivalent of a record, 40 minutes of music, and then let me hand that to you. I don't even care if it ends up in the film or not.
Right.
But at least they're cutting to my stuff.
Right.
Rather than
and then you're
Hans
competing
Zimmer.
with yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's just going to be better for everyone.
Yeah.
And it worked really well.
Yeah. That sounds like a much better process.
Yeah. It worked.
Yeah.
It worked really well. In past scenarios, I'm constantly navigating that place of, just trying to figure out, like, are you attached to the temp or what's in there because it's what you think should be there? Is it, furthermore, like, we're so used to dealing with music people, right? Like, your job as a producer, you're at least dealing with an artist who has a handle on
what they want, what they hear, the vocabulary.
Exactly. Vocabulary just for start, like I won't even speak to my own experiences. Like, I have heard stories from like A-list composers who have been in like 3-month sagas trying to figure out like what a director, like I heard one about like, we'll leave out names.
Of course.
A-list composer working with an A-list director. The posters are out. Like the score is not done and the film is being advertised because this director, it keeps telling the composer, I want the score to be 2 notes. And the composer can't figure out what that means. He's tried every like harmonic combination of things. And it turned out he just wanted like the Jaws thing.
I was about to say, like, did he just want Jaws? Like,
essentially. Like, he just wanted the transition between those 2 notes to be like the focal point and main motif. Obviously, it couldn't be Jaws. But it took this guy like 3 months to figure out what he meant by 2 notes, So a lot of the job for me has been like figuring that out. Like, I've gotten ones where, I'll get like a classical reference. And then I'll go down this rabbit hole of like, okay, so the piece that he chose is a Ravel piece and it's from this era of classical music. So this is the general, like, space I can inhabit. And then I'll like realize a month later, like, oh, he just liked the sound of the aggressive violinist. That's it.
Nothing about the composition.
Nothing about the
sound.
composer, nothing about the period. And it's like, it's this puzzle, it's a frustrating puzzle sometimes.
Yeah, that's crazy. Cause I wasn't, maybe I just didn't do enough research. I wasn't able to like really see like what films you scored. So I didn't get to like listen to too much of it. But
yeah, that's
speaking of strings, like when you're composing, I'm assuming not because I know it's like such high budgets to get real strings, but like what kind of, I guess, VSTs or like what are you using to get string ideas across? That's the thing I struggle with the most.
Sure. I haven't done, it's not my main like home base. I've done some orchestral stuff, but it has not been the bulk of what I've done. I'd say like 80% of what I've done is everything else but strings. But it's like, plugin libraries, I've tried a bunch of them. I would be lying if I said I had like a go-to. I've changed it up pretty much every time because they're wildly different too.
Yeah.
And I am constantly pivoting to like, okay, we want that more intimate thing.
Yeah.
I want to say the last one I did was like Spitfire, like something in
The Spitfire stuff is really great.
Yeah. And I've supplemented with real string players when need be. But yeah, I will say this. I have had the privilege of working on stuff where I get a bit more of free reign. It just depends on the director.
Yeah.
It just depends on who you're working with.
Yeah, so much of modern like film scoring too, I feel like it's like maybe it's a lot of like Trent Reznor, right? Just like influence, but like being able to use synths so much more often and
Totally.
like more modern sounds. And it's like, I love that kind of stuff. And obviously like Trent and Atticus are like reinventing the
Absolutely.
whole, like film scoring world. Yeah, dude, it's such a crazy world. So when you're editing, are you working like Pro Tools with like the video showing up, or like how do you like to work?
I'm in Ableton with picture whenever I can get picture. Okay. So if they have that available and if they're willing to share it so that I'm not working blind, ideal world, I'd love to be working with Final Cut. It's just rare that you're given that. It's usually stuff moving constantly, which
I've never used Final. You can compose in Final Cut?
Sorry, I meant like the final cut of the film.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
The software, I was like, wait, what?
It's my fault. You brought up software and then I went there. No, if I could have the final cut of the film and then work off of that, that would be ideal. I almost never get that.
No, yeah, it makes sense.
So I'm dropping in different versions and then, it becomes a nightmare usually because they move 2 clips and now all of a sudden everything.
Yeah, I was going to say, is it also like, let's say you give them a piece of music and they like re-edit something. Are their editors able to like fuck with the score at all? Does it go back to you and like, hey, we got to redo this?
They will. Like it's funny because like, think about it logically. Like if we take out a second and a half of music, it's going to sound insane.
Right.
But in film, like you can just cut stuff out
and it just works.
It's just, it's like, oh, we don't want that little clip or let's end that earlier. Yeah. So this is another one of those situations where like they'll just brutally cut something and be like, yeah, it's good. And I'm like, please send that back to me.
It's gonna drive me insane.
Exactly. So there's a lot of that. A lot of what I started doing instead of working with like a full cut is I'll approach the film in chunks. So it's like the first 15 cues will live in one session file and then they'll have their corresponding names. And it's a lot more digestible when they start changing stuff because then I'm like, okay, cue 4 either doesn't exist now or it changed slightly or it's twice as long and I gotta approach that. And one thing that's cool about it is that it's made me far less precious because of that. Because you can't be.
No, you can't. They're gonna tell you if they don't like something and just like
exactly that. And just like when I first started, I had this like feeling like everything needed to transition and merge in and out, and just because we're so used to that with creating the journey of a song and an album, it's like there's a flow to it. And I've found that with film, like you can be a lot more caveman like in your decisions of where to cut stuff, and it depends scene by scene, but it because I had to, like they would cut something and they're like, we like this cue, but we just cut the last 15 seconds of this, can you make it work? And all of a sudden you're like, how the like
I can figure it out, but it's like it's not going to make sense.
Exactly,
but then you make it make sense,
and you have to make it make sense. And then once you do, you're like, well, that wasn't so bad. Like I did the brutal sort of thing that seemed insane in my head, but so it's made me far less precious as a whole, and that carried over to the way I produce records too, which is cool.
I went through something similar recently. I wrote and produced an original song for this like movie, but it's like it's going to be like played in the movie.
Oh, cool.
Which is like cool.
Yeah.
It's like one of the actors is like a rock star and it's like their song that they're doing.
Gotcha.
And like we wrote the song and like obviously I did the pop thing where it's like, and what's funny is like I actually like to play with BPMs, but I was just like, cool, we're just gonna write the song, keep it 1 BPM. And then the thing that we had to keep going back and forth on was like they wanted like every section of the song to feel like slower. They wanted it to feel like a film score.
Oh wow.
Which was like for a song is like, oh fuck, like how do I do that?
Yeah.
And again, it was like at first I was frustrated, but then like I said earlier, like I like a challenge, I like the puzzle, and like what I ended up having to do was instead of like going in and like fucking with the tempo, I was like, all right, I'm just gonna like sit on the piano and like it's funny, I wasn't the singer on it, but I was like, I'm just gonna sit and play it and record my vocal and record the piano and like just do what I naturally feel.
Sure.
And like I sent them like 3 versions of that, and they were like, okay, we like this like second one. And then I guess this is for more for our listeners if you ever run into this, but then I produced the track like around that performance.
Did you have to create like a BPM map?
I didn't even bother.
Oh, wow.
I was just like, we're just gonna go around my performance.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah, I mean, it was a pain in the ass. Like,
Sure.
the singer had to like come in and like recut to like my vocal and
Damn.
like get my timings down.
Sure.
It's
But
like,
that's what was necessary.
that's what they
create that
wanted. Yeah, it
journey.
was like, you know, and like I had to guess like, you know, the BPM difference of like 40 at some points, like really like
Whoa.
big changes. Yeah, that they wanted.
Damn.
So I was just like, okay, I guess this is what I'll have to do. Cause like, yeah, I tried to like write it in and like that, it was just like feeling like shit.
Sure. Yeah, I can imagine. That's,
Right.
That's wild.
Yeah, I was gonna say too. So for scoring, like just alluding to that, like I know there's this. Yeah, it's kind of the same problem a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But like, what's your kind of process for all that?
Depends on the scene. Sometimes, yeah, I'll just abandon the grid and
Yes.
I'll just watch what's happening on the screen and play to it. And then now whatever that anchored instrument
Right,
is.
you follow that.
Exactly. So I'll use that a lot. Sometimes I'll put a cue in there. I'll get notes on it and they'll want something different, but I'll take that initial source material and flip the BPM on that and see how that feels. Like I'll almost sample myself and get far away from that BPM. It's really just a lot of trial and error. You
Yeah.
know, like I mean, similar to what you just explained.
That's what I'm learning in like the very limited amount of like scoring kind of thing I've done, where it's like, yeah, it's just messing around, and like even more
Totally.
so than like writing a song where it's like it's so much bigger of a thing. You have so many other elements to play with, and you know so much other people to appease.
Yep.
Like saying there were 2 directors, and I was working with both directors. Sometimes they were
Damn.
like they had like differing opinions.
Oh my God.
And I was like very respectful. I was like, you guys got to figure out what you want first,
Yeah.
and like get back to me, because I can't be making 2 versions every
Of
single
course.
time.
Of course. Yeah, I think the biggest thing and the biggest difference is it's all the same experimentation that you're going through with writing a song or
Yeah.
working with an artist. The difference here is that you have the visual compass in front of you to constantly tell you whether you're on the right track or not.
Right.
You know, which is that's the experience that's so different from the other processes, is like you're looking at this thing and it'll pretty quickly let you know, no, that's
Right,
not going to work
that
here.
doesn't feel right.
Yeah. Or maybe you think you just, you know, made God's gift to film scoring and the director's like, yeah, no, I'm not trying to say that much here or
it's
whatever,
like
you know?
just you play the supporting role here.
Exactly.
know?
So it's just that process.
Ah, dude, I love that. It's like such a world that I would eventually love to get into. It's so foreign to me.
It's cool. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. I want to talk to you a little bit about how you try and balance, you know, kind of what you were alluding to before, like being an artist, being a film scorer. Now you're dipping into doing a lot more like writing and producing for other artists. How do you personally like to like balance those so you're filling up each of those cups?
I would say honestly that up until this year, I balanced them poorly.
Fair enough.
That is the most straightforward answer.
Yeah.
I think I pivoted from one to the other based on what was exciting, which isn't a bad.
No, I was about to say like, that's not bad. Like,
Yeah,
you know.
that wasn't bad. It often, or it occasionally, maybe screwed up momentum in one of the other departments.
Right.
Like I had said, with film scoring, it kind of can be all consuming
Yeah.
for a period. So, and then the interesting thing that I noticed that happened when I would go all in on one of those paths is, you know, after scoring stuff for 9 months or whatever it was 2 years ago, I remember doing my first session with an artist after finishing whatever work I was scoring, and just to like play a verse and chorus felt like an orgasm.
Yeah.
Like after being in the other territory.
Dude, of course.
You know,
Yeah.
like it was just like, holy shit. Like
Yeah.
I missed this. Like,
Yeah.
so then I just went all in on that, you know, and that's really what's dictated it. The biggest difference in my last year, as far as how I've decided how my time is getting spent, this past year was the first year I was like truly selfish about how my time got spent, and very, very, it's the first year I said no to stuff.
Yeah.
It was the first year I was like conscious about what I was saying no to, had reasons
Yeah.
for saying no. I think LA is a city that you can fill up an entire year feeling unbelievably busy, look back in December and ask yourself, what the hell have I done all year?
Yeah, that was my first, I guess, 6 years in LA.
Damn.
And like, it wasn't until I think like the pandemic and then my kid was born the year later.
Yeah.
Where I had like really firm boundaries where it's like, I don't work on weekends. I try and end most of my sessions by 6 or 7. My previous manager who we were talking about before the podcast, like taught me that like, he's like, you can say no to things. You know that, right?
Yep.
Like he sensed that I was like getting overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, I can? He's like, yeah, like say no to things. And I was like, fuck, okay, yeah, no, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And it's such a, like when you're as a producer and songwriter in the music industry, you're taught so often, it's like, you just got to say yes to everything because
Totally.
you never know.
Oh, the never know thing.
Right. You never know what it can be.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, sure, like that's definitely true. But also there's something to be said about, like what the things that I say no to a lot. They'll ask me if I want to work with an artist. I listen to their stuff. And like, I don't have that feeling. I don't have that like, ooh. And like years before I would have said like, well, you never know.
Dude, I know that shit so well.
And then it's like every single time it's like, no, your gut knew.
Yep.
Like you knew that like, that person could be insanely talented, but like your Venn diagram of what your tastes are just like not there. And now it's like, I'm at how I do it now, which I encourage everyone to do no matter really what stage you are in your career, is if you listen to something, no matter how big or small it is, if it gives you that like feeling where it's like, ooh, like that could be something.
Yep.
Then say yes to that.
Yeah.
Because those are the ones, at least in my experience, like now having some success, it's like, oh yeah, everything that's been successful for me was that feeling.
Totally.
I'm sorry to cut you off. I
No.
went on a tangent there.
That was, I mean, it's honestly comforting hearing you say that because that's where I was at. I think what I would even add to that is like, if I was excited to do a day of prep leading up to the session, like if I had the luxury to do that in the schedule, that was a good indication of like, I'm excited to find sounds to make presets for just so that I'm quicker when they're in the room.
Yep.
If if those wheels are turning, then that's a good sign.
Yeah.
The one thing I would say that maybe is an additional sort of just something I had to consider in the way my time was spent, as we were speaking about earlier, like my career path has been very non-traditional as compared to peers. And one thing that I learned is that like this definition of producer, right? I was even hesitant to, or saw your invitation to come here and still had the feeling of like, am I a producer? Like, do I belong on producer points? Like, I'm thrilled, but like, I don't know. And I love producing records. Yeah. I love working with artists, but there are a bunch of sort of byproducts of being a producer in LA that people say you have to go through to be a producer.
Right.
Of which I just decided I'm not cut out for. Yeah. And I have so much admiration for those who can endure some aspects of it.
I feel like, are you hinting at like the songwriting session dating thing that like everyone ends up doing?
I definitely struggled with that for a long time. My way of solving the blind date anxiety that I endured and did not like going through 5 days a week was I ultimately found a production partner, and I really enjoyed having somebody else in the room where they could be in the chair and be the more engineer type, and I could just run around and be the ideas guy. We would switch. Yeah. That was really helpful. But then there were other parts of it that I also like eventually had to just come to terms with the fact that I didn't like. First and foremost, I grew up liking records, albums. Yep. When I got into production, I wanted to make albums. Yeah. There's not a lot of people doing that here. As far as it's so funny. I was just listening to the Jack Antonoff. It was just yesterday they released like his second episode of And the Writer Is. Mm-hmm. He was saying the same thing. He's like, right. He's like, I'm not the single guy. He's like, I'm the album guy. Yeah. He's like, if you're, an A&R that's looking for the single that you don't have, he's like, that's not me. Yep. And that's not what I do. And it's funny because it's like, I'm slowly learning that with myself as well. But it's like, also, it's like, that's not what I love to do. I'm sorry, that it's what I love to do, but it's like, I also love to write like a stupid dumb pop song. Sure. But I've learned that like, as I did my first couple years in LA, I cannot do that. all the
5
time.
days a week.
Sure.
It's like I actually need to do it way less. Where like before, like it was like 85 to 90% of my schedule, and now it's like 5 to 10% of my schedule.
Yep.
And
That's great.
yeah, and it's like I work mostly with artists.
That's great.
And I try and create worlds with them, and I'm so much happier.
Yeah.
Doing it.
I believe that.
Yeah.
I wish I got to do more of it, to be honest.
Yeah.
My production partner and I built a 1,000 square foot studio.
Which we're going to talk about because I've seen the pictures and the videos, and it looks, and I got to go get over there one day because it looks absolutely fucking amazing.
I'm probably going to disappoint you when I get into that, that tangent, but no, it's all part of the story. So it's all good. But we built that place with the idea of, if we create an oasis for artists in this city who we're experiencing on a daily basis are burnt out by being sent on all these tangents and blind dates trying to find a hit or whatever. What if we create this oasis, and what if we tell all these managers and A&Rs, like, just bring us on for an EP.
Right.
Just bring us on for some amount of songs. Give us the dumbest, lowest amount of money, and we'll say yes, just so we can get 4 songs or 5 songs with an artist. Like, we're in. We'll mix it. We'll do everything to make it as easy as possible.
Yeah.
It didn't happen.
No, it's for our listeners who may not know this, but in this LA writing scene, it's so hard to get even 2 days.
It's crazy.
With the same person in a row. And I think it's because like everyone is so afraid, where if it's like, what if that first day doesn't go well? And like, spoiler alert, you can just cancel the second day. Like, it's fine.
Totally.
It's like, I don't know. Because I'm the same way, where it's like, if someone says they want 2 days with me, I'm like, great. Like, let's get lunch that first day.
Yep.
Like, I don't even need to write a song with you.
Totally.
Like, that's perfectly fine. And it's just like the culture here does not allow it.
I think it's that, and then I think it's also the approach to like everyone trying to catch lightning in a bottle rather than just take a snapshot of where the artist is right now.
Yes.
Like, that's what this is.
Yes.
Like, I'm not going to make the same record today that I'm going to a year from now.
No.
It's a snapshot. And that's what art has always been to me. And I don't think managers and labels and other people are approaching that. They're trying to like catch a golden ticket via some combination of an artist and producer. So they're too afraid to commit to anybody. Like, when I found out it wasn't about money, because I was offering to do it for pennies.
Yeah, it's not about money.
Yeah. Like, I was getting multiple days with artists even. And then the stuff was just sitting on hard drives.
Yeah.
And then when I like was like, all right, fuck all this, I looked back on a lot of those artists like last few years.
Yeah.
It wasn't even like shit was coming out.
Yeah. No.
You know what I mean? Like, it was just like, okay, so it wasn't like I didn't deliver, because there's nothing. It's just like decision paralysis or something.
They're just afraid to take that first step so often, because it's like a thing too where I feel like teams and artists, they're so afraid that an EP or a single is going to define them. Yeah. For their career.
I've been guilty of that, so I understand that.
Right. Yeah. It's like, I have too, and it's just like understanding that, like, no, that's not true at all. It's like, even looking at someone like, we're mutual friends with Dan Iger, like Chapel Roan. Like, you listen to her first EP and you're like, this is fine. Yep. It's still out there. You can still hear it. Sure. You know what I mean? And it's just like, at least she was just still putting, I don't know, it's just a thing where it's like, people just get so afraid of that. And it's like, guys, just put music out. Yeah. Like, it's fine. If it's not good, people will not care. Totally. If the next thing is amazing.
You'll survive it. Yeah.
Yeah. No one's going to hear a record be like, this record's amazing. And then someone be like, yeah, but did you hear their last EP? It sucked.
That's true. It's never happened.
It's literally never happened.
I can't listen to that song because they put out stuff I don't like before that.
It's like just not a thing.
No.
And so, and like there's people like you and like myself included, where it's like, I will work with artists like even for free. Just like, it's like, I'm willing to take like a large piece of the back end if I truly, truly, truly believe in you. And it's like, yeah, let's just fucking do it. Yeah. Like, let's just get the music out there. Yeah. It's a really crazy thing.
Yeah. I know that it's not everybody's experience. And I know that everything I just said kind of is tinged with the negative, but it's really not me complaining as much as it was me coming to terms with like, okay, well, like if I did what I could to bring this experience in, it didn't happen. That's okay. Right. I'm not going to beat my head against the wall and do those 5 sessions a week and chase singles or whatever, because it just doesn't make me happy and it doesn't make me fulfilled creatively. So I'll just go elsewhere, you know,
Yeah.
because the other part of it that became frustrating for me too was like I had a producer friend who I met up with recently, and he's in session 7 days a week, and
Yeah.
he's that guy. And I remember asking him how it's going, and he was like, dude, it's a lot of heartbreak.
Yeah.
And I'd never heard anybody like put it in such a succinct sentence like that.
Yeah.
And we're talking about someone who's constantly posting the records that he has landed,
Yeah.
stuff that is coming out, but he's still uttering those words.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, you know what, man? That was another thing I wasn't cut out for
Yeah.
with like that particular path. Like I have dealt with plenty of failure. It's not about that.
Yeah.
But the heartbreak of making something you really care about and then it not coming out because of the other bullshit, that shit drove me nuts.
I mean, dude, it's the same for me where it's like I know a record is good if like 5 years later after working with the artist, I'll like play it again and be like, what the fuck was wrong with these people? Like this record is so good.
Yeah, man.
And I've even been vindicated on some of them where it's like the artist didn't take it and then it went out to pitch and ended up like having a decent amount of success.
Oh, I've loved those.
Right. And it's just being like, see, I fucking knew it. Like,
Yep.
you know, I just had a record come out recently that didn't come out because the artist like kind of ended up not doing their artistry anymore. So it wasn't one of those cases.
Sure.
But we've all always loved the song, but the song we wrote like 3 years ago and it finally came out 2 weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
And it's like starting to gain a lot of traction. But it was like that record where we finished it and I was like, no, this is the fucking good one.
Yeah.
Like it's a really pretty record.
Yep.
You know, it was made with my like favorite. I have like a rubber bridge baritone telly that I had custom made.
Hell yeah. I love it.
Yeah. So I'm like, anyway, super, super proud of those records. Yeah. I think with artists, the thing that I've had success with to keep working with artists, this is more advice for our listeners.
Sure.
Is I've been able to make those connections with artists where the second I stopped trying to write the single for the artist is when I was able to keep working with the artist. When I always joke with them, but it's like, yeah, like I don't care what song we write today. Like I just want to write with you. I want to get to know you. I don't care if we write the song that's like never going to make it on the album.
Yep.
I just want to like do what you kind of want to do. And because I was an artist for a short time, but I was an artist and I was an artist in the room in like LA rooms for like 2 years. I gained that perspective because I went into so many rooms and I always knew what producers were just in it to try and get like the big single and which ones like actually cared about my artist project.
Sure.
And when I went through that, I was like, I'm going to make sure I don't make someone else feel like that.
That's huge.
And I think because I had that, my own learning experience from that, I think artists just like end up like, I think, trusting me a little bit more. Right. And I'm able to do like albums and EPs and stuff like that. I've been very fortunate to do that. But yeah, I think it's like, it really starts from there. It's like just like making people feel comfortable. And like, it's like, I'm on your side. I don't give a fuck about your manager. I don't give a fuck about your A&R. Like, I will fight for you. I will, like, there's been times where I've been the bad guy for the artist where they're like, I don't think my A&R is right. And I'll be like, cool, I'll put my foot down. Like, that's fine. I don't give a shit.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, artists need more of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
They definitely need more advocates.
Hey, gang, I just wanted to pop in here to let you know that the best way you can help this podcast grow is to rate and review us wherever you listen to podcasts. It tells the algorithm to push our show to other listeners so we can grow. And it's one of, if not the best way to help support this podcast. So if you wouldn't mind, take a second to rate this podcast. Sharing it with your friends would be amazing too. All right, back to the pod. So speaking of artists, I want to talk about a couple of the songs that we have for our deep dives.
Sure.
First one, we'll talk about an artist that I've worked with. I think she's amazing. Maris, her song that you did with her, Was It a Dream? Maris is an incredible singer, but we always start these off with telling kind of the story behind the write and the process behind the record. So how'd that write go?
That was the first day we met.
Sick.
Yeah. First song we ever made together. She came to my house. Studio was in the house at that point. I think I'm getting the story right. She sat down on the couch, told me she wanted to write a song about being abducted by aliens, I think.
That sounds like something she'd want to write about.
Yeah. I think that's how it started. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, let's see this through, you know? So I probably started messing with a synth or something after that. And in that window of time where we're getting started, she starts talking about a relationship that she just had that was like very fast in how it escalated, but then burnt out super quickly. And she's like, talking to me and my partner at the time, Warren, and she's like, it's just like the type of thing where I'm just like, did that really happen? Like, was it a dream or, And I kind of like looked at her and I'm like, I feel like that's the song you need to write today. Like, and she kind of looks at me as like, okay, but I'm still going to kind of make it about aliens. And I'm just like, that's fine. But definitely put that in there because that feels like what's like you're feeling right now,
Yeah.
And so she starts jotting stuff down. I start messing around on a synth.
Yeah.
And the song kind of writes itself pretty quickly in that back and forth. I know you know how that goes. Yeah. We start just layering things, and she's just... The funny thing about Maris is, like, she just wants to sing all the time.
Yes.
She wants to... So, like, I feel like it was the type of thing where I'd do, like, a half an hour worth of something.
Right.
And then I could feel how anxious she was. Like, we have a vocal to work with. We don't need her to recut the verse or anything. But we would just like be like, okay, like, yeah, sure. Like we can sing some more.
We'll just hit record and you just do your thing for the next 2 hours.
So, yeah. So we would just like let her sing more just so she could get it out.
Right.
And then I think the last thing I remember about that one was that her Uber was outside when she cut the bridge. So the take of the bridge was like us hearing her concept for the bridge, and the vocal that's on the record is the only vocal that we have.
Oh, sick.
Yeah, so it was just like she tracked it and we were like, yeah, no, that's great.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I remember is that within that same window, maybe the Uber was on the way at this point.
Right.
She had been delivering everything like a bit airy and not in full voice.
Right.
And like right before she's about to leave, I'm like, can you just give me like one or two where you're just like...
Going for it.
Yeah. And she's like, yeah, sure. And... we got like maybe 2 takes of that before she had to bounce, and like that's what you hear on the record.
Yeah. I mean, like, listen, she is such an incredible singer. It's just like,
Totally.
oh, it's just easy. You can just sing something and I just hit record.
Oh, yeah.
And that is it. Yeah, I was just curious too. It's like, it's such like it's a song where you're not reinventing the wheels with the production, but it actually, like, whenever I listen to that, I remember when she first released it, I listened to it, and it's like, oh, it feels kind of Robin. Like,
totally.
Which, like, who doesn't like Robin?
Yep.
I don't know, just it like the whole thing, everything makes sense. The atmosphere, the vibes, the lyric. To me, I'm surprised that song hasn't gotten, I don't know if it's gotten any, but gotten more syncs. Just like, Was It a Dream? Just like everything about it just feels...
I'm glad all that came through because
Yeah.
I love that song.
Yeah.
Like, it's one of my favorite things I've ever done.
Yeah.
And she's just phenomenal on it.
Yeah.
And I love a good sequenced analog synthesizer and love the...
Nothing wrong with it.
My favorite thing to do is find all the weird shit that you can now push and pull with because you've got this just like, it's like, that's my favorite thing. I love shit like that. I mean, going back to like Depeche Mode and, Robin, like you said, I love stuff like that. But
well, speaking of the bass sound, what do you remember what you guys, I feel like you guys had you and your production partner at the time had a pretty big synth collection.
Yeah.
Were you guys mostly using analog synths or anything
all
in the box?
analog. Yeah. For no other reason than like any excuse I can get to not look at a screen, I'll take. So, and I really do genuinely love like the tactile experience of being on analog synths. So that is predominantly Rev 2. I love that synth.
Yeah. I haven't messed with it too much. But,
oh man. Do you have any of the other like Dave Smith sequential stuff? You got like a Prophet or anything?
Not in this small studio.
Okay.
I've used the Prophet, but not the Rev 2.
So like my experience with like Prophet versus the Rev 2, like, Prophet's James Blake, Radiohead, all that. Right. I'm not a phenomenal keys player. I'm a drummer who moved to guitar and bounced around and figured out things to make songs. For someone who's like more leaning towards a programmer and like a sound design nerd, Rev 2 is more...
Is it like good for like sequence things like that? Okay.
I use it like crazy for scoring stuff. Yeah. Like it almost... The way I would describe it is the way the like architecture of the synth is as compared to the Prophet is if you want to make, let's say, something that sounds kind of modular-ish, but you don't want to start like going completely broke. Like if you don't want to touch that, I've gotten tons of mileage out of it for that. Like all sorts of weird percussive like sequences. I can take a patch and like, because I know the synth so well, quickly manipulate it to get it to be a percussive thing as opposed to a straight up like synth sound. It's very, very like moldable. And the other thing is like I love having great presets to start and hearing something and being like, that's not what I would have expected to put there, but that's kind of interesting. But I need to do X, Y, and Z to it to make it work.
Right.
You can quickly
just get it, dial it in.
Exactly.
That's how I feel about like the Juno.
Yeah.
Right. Where it's like Juno's so stupidly simple to use, and it's like, okay, this is almost there. I just gotta like mess with the attack or something.
Yep.
And like squeeze it in.
Yep.
With the Rev 2, are you going straight into the interface? You have it hitting any analog gear before?
For that song, we definitely had it hitting pre's of some sort. God, I don't remember what Warren. It was Warren's rack full of stuff that he had at that point.
It doesn't have to be the exact thing.
Yeah,
we're not going to fact check you.
It definitely went through pre's and likely some compression.
Yeah.
And then I'm trying to think what else. Oh, you know what? He had what's his name's pre's? Is it Eric Valentine's company?
The Undertone ones?
Yes, he had those pre's. That's what we were using for everything. It might have just been that because
just going straight in.
Yeah, those things were magical.
Yeah, they've been on kind of like my looking list for a little while.
Yeah.
I just bought his plugin that he released recently.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it's like the Unfair Child plugin version.
Yes.
It's actually the best with the Fairchild emulations. I will say that.
Yeah.
So give them
They're
credit.
great. They're great at what they do.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was probably everything. The way our setup used to be is I had all my synths, and then I had just an Apollo Twin with Ableton on a computer in my little world.
Right.
And then I was coming stereo out into pre's in his world, and his world was where everything ended up.
Right.
But it gave me the flexibility to like, all my synths were going to him as well. I could track into my Ableton and then manipulate it and then send it to him, or I could add something from my folders and like we were linked up
Ableton
with the
link.
clocks. Yeah,
dude, that's such an amazing feature.
It was really cool.
Was he in Pro Tools or Ableton?
He was in Pro Tools and Ableton.
Okay,
so
same.
Because he was a Pro Tools guy, but then I would do stuff and he'd be like, what did you just do?
Yeah.
You know, and then he'd like look over and be like, do you know how long that would take me to do that?
I use Pro Tools and Ableton. Like that's kind of my setup for that reason. I started using Ableton because it's just like, can't do that in Pro Tools.
Yeah.
At least like not that fast.
Exactly.
I mean, even just like the sampler alone.
Totally.
Just the fact that I can just like bloop.
Yep.
And it's there.
Totally.
And it's like, great, that's so much easier.
Yep.
I'm just waiting for like Pro Tools has gotten some improvements with all that kind of stuff. Like I think they realized that they were behind in some of the more like MIDI things, and they've slowly been adding it. Like what they just added, which Ableton does have, is playlist for MIDI.
Yeah, I think I've never used it if they have it, but
I don't think they do, but Pro Tools literally just added playlists for MIDI. And
that's interesting.
Why wasn't this here the whole fucking time?
It seems so easy too.
Yeah, like you've always had playlists. Because like a lot of the time too, it's like even though I have real piano, especially for like real piano songs where I'm playing the entire song through, it's like I just want to do a couple takes and like whatever. I don't want to have to.
Of course.
Anyways, the whole thing. Yet another sidetrack. No, really, really great thing. So when you're working with Warren on that record, like once Maris leaves, what's kind of like the workflow to get the record done?
Listening to it a lot, figuring out where those puzzles are.
Yeah.
You know, like paying attention to your critical ear of like that chorus is not quite hitting the way I want it to, or, you know, all the supplementary stuff. I usually create some parameters for myself before we even start making a record, or as a record starts to happen.
Yeah.
So I'm going to reach for these 3 things and I'm going to stick to them. It just helps me, you know, my brain.
That's good. Rules are like, I don't know, rules are...
Yeah, exactly. Like. Yeah. So I will then try to solve the puzzles with just those tools and that palette that I've like boxed myself into. So I remember with that one, it was a lot of the Tempest. Are you familiar with the Tempest?
No, what's that? So rare I don't know about a thing.
No, and not a lot of people do. And this is like everyone should go get one if you can get if you can.
What is it?
It is an old drum machine that Sequential put out.
Okay.
It's like 16 pads, and it's basically a sample library that lives in this thing. It's a very good, interesting sample library. Like it doesn't sound like anything. It doesn't sound like any of my folders. It's just very unique. And then there's an analog synth engine. I think it's 2 voices in this thing as well. So a lot of the sounds are layers of a sample and then some synth engine thing that's being manipulated through an LFO or...
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Is this what you use for like a lot of like the drums in the record for?
Oh yeah.
Okay, because the one, especially like, I'm curious if it was like something like the toms that you guys use in that.
Yep.
Okay, that was one of my notes here where it was like such standout like 80s style toms.
Yep.
And I was gonna ask like, what's the deal with that?
So
Yeah.
again, I like stuff where it's like I don't like to start from scratch and program a sound.
Yeah.
Because I like working with the unexpected. So if I have something I can quickly just go like this through and be like, whoa, I didn't expect
Yeah,
that.
I'm the same way. I don't craft sounds.
Yeah.
I find them and then I tweak.
I've used to be obsessed with the idea of like I'm gonna make the thing that's in my head, and then I was super fucking bored every time I made the thing I was in my head because there was no magic.
Yeah.
It was just like, oh, well, now I made the thing that was in my head. That's
Cool.
yeah. So I like the unexpected, and I like machines that I can work quickly on and like find the unexpected and then manipulate the unexpected easily. That's the second part of like things that I like, or machines. That ability is crucial to me, because if I stumble upon something cool, but then it's like just a little too this or that, and I can't rein it in because the UI on it is just too complicated, then that bums me out.
Right.
So this thing, you can click through sounds.
Yeah.
You can quickly turn off the synth engine. You can pitch things. There's a very simple ADSR that you can apply to both the synth component and the samples themselves. And then more important than anything for me is I'm playing stuff.
Yeah.
I don't like to mouse around when it comes to drums.
Same. That's why I like Ableton. I do all my drums in Ableton because I want to play it.
Yep.
Like that's my sequencer at the end of the day.
Yep. We weren't even like gridding or quantizing what I was playing. Like I would basically perform. I'd have Warren set me up on a loop, and a lot of the drum stuff you're hearing is I'm like, just don't stop me, just let me go, and I'm just going nuts
Just
on this
playing
thing.
on it.
Yeah, and then he would be like, "There's a lot of good stuff in there. Give me 15 minutes."
Yeah.
and then
That's pretty impressive because I'm assuming you were playing against that bass.
Yes.
Yeah. And to the fact that it feels as tight as it does.
Yeah.
Like is impressive. But there's definitely is like, especially like in some of like that, like those like hats, I guess they are.
Yep.
Feel really pocketed.
Yeah,
And
it was
that's-
just a lot of layering stuff
Yeah.
and getting things to work with other
Yeah.
stuff.
That's really cool. I gotta check that thing out.
It's really
Yeah,
cool, man.
yeah.
It is. It's hilarious because I think they made it for a very small period of time, and then the people who have them, and
They don't sell them.
they don't make it anymore. And the secondhand market, I've definitely seen them double and triple in price over the
Dude,
years.
that's what happens with some of these things
I
where it's
know.
just like, well, that's just what it costs now.
Yup,
And
there's no support for the thing. There's no, like, it's just a weird
and then
one.
you gotta find those like random like guys who are amazing with synths who, if it ever breaks, or not breaks, but like all the analog synths, they need some work every couple
of
years.
course,
It's
of course.
just, it's just what it is.
Yep.
I have this like, I'll show it to you after this, like weird like Yamaha Porta sound. It's like
Okay.
a battery powered synth. It's like it's actual synth.
No way.
It looks like a toy, but like it's a thing where it's like just by itself, it like sounds whatever, but I start running it through guitar pedals.
Right.
And it's like, ooh. And that's my second one because my first one, I was working at my buddy's place and his ceiling started leaking and it leaked right on it. And he felt so guilty that like he like spent like a month on eBay trying to find me another one.
Oh my God.
But he found it and he gave it to me, which I was very thankful for. They're not that expensive. It was like $70-80.
Sick.
But anyway, it's like you find those like pieces of gear, but I'm waiting for it when it's like it's kind of starting to go and I'm just like, oh God, I hope I can find someone to fix this
Yup.
fucking
Yup.
thing.
I know the struggle.
But yeah, that's just the problem. It's like a real analog synth. It's not just like a toy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
It
the
requires
top-
maintenance like an old car.
Yeah, it's the worst, but also the best.
Yep.
Dope. I want to go into our next song.
Sure.
It's one of your songs, recently released. First Vows? First Vows?
First Vows?
Vowses. Well, no, it's Vows, but like Vows is
Yeah.
Never Learned to Pray.
Yeah.
Never Learned to Pray. Dude, really beautiful song.
Thank you, man.
You know, I hear some of your scoring kind of
Definitely.
side in that record.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, what's the story behind that record and how you wrote it and got the production done?
All right, so I'll take you on a tangent with the studio stuff because it's related.
Love it.
I already told you I built that studio with my partner.
Right.
It was our dream spot. I already told you we went through 2 years, a little less than 2 years, trying to cultivate, working on bodies of work
Right.
with artists. Didn't quite get there, and it was a lot of heartbreak. And worked on a bunch of stuff we're really proud of. A lot of stuff came out, a lot of exciting experiences and records.
Yeah.
But overall, towards the end of that period, it was frustrating.
Yeah.
Around that time, my production partner decides he's got to move back to New York due to family stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, shit, what do I want to do?
Right.
For the first time, I was asking myself in a long time, what do I want to do? And I had to admit to myself that the practice of walking into that studio every day, this is going to sound so fucking spoiled to anybody who's seen a photo of that studio and who's watching this. I became super paralyzed by, for the first time in my life, having literally everything I could ask for.
Yeah.
Like I had the drums set up. I had 16 mics on the kit if I wanted to.
Right.
I had all the synths and all the guitars and all the folders full of more options to, venture into. And for the first time, I felt really uninspired. And I felt like pressure. I didn't know where to start, like because I had so many places I could start from. Around that time, I also started really taking notice of the fact that a lot of my favorite records, a lot of my favorite art in general was born out of limitation.
Yeah.
And I started to ask myself, like, why am I like obsessing over like these romanticized stories about people having nothing and making these beautiful things that I take with me for the rest of my life and hold up as like my favorite shit. But I'm over here with more than they've ever had and I'm frustrated. And I decided to take a really big leap and just really limit myself for the entire year. I've not been in that studio for a year. I still have it. It's mine. I pulled my gear out. I have somebody else using it. And I was like, I am going to take my laptop, my 2-channel Apollo, and my late father-in-law's nylon guitar that means a lot to me.
Yeah.
And I'm going to work with that for the year. Like I needed to like create parameters to work within.
Right.
I felt like I lost my identity, and I realized that so much of my identity as a writer, producer, artist when I was younger was born out of limitation.
Right.
So it just became this like year of limitation. And
would you say it brought you back to maybe focusing on just crafting songs?
Yes.
More than, okay.
Yeah, which I'd heard that before.
Yeah.
Like you hear the guys who are just like, I just want to have my acoustic guitar and just focus on the song. Yeah. It's easier said than done, right?
Well, of course, yeah.
And at those chapters, I genuinely enjoyed like mousing around in Ableton. So I was like, no, like keep your acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
But I found myself in this place where I was in like emergency mode, like it was like I could go find another production partner or I could share the studio, but I was like, I just need to do something extreme because I'm just feeling so uninspired and trapped and not fulfilled. And so I did that. And this song was one of a batch of songs. It was very much me messing around with like stuff I grew up on. Like I grew up on a lot of Motown sounding stuff, kind of just playing through those old chord progressions and falling in love with songs again.
Yeah.
And then the really cool thing about what happened was, to me, is I think if I had that studio when I made the demo for this song,
right,
I would have gone off on some novel path to like modernize the Motown sound, like some dumb shit that I would have come up with. I would have gone down that rabbit hole, but I couldn't do that.
Right.
Because I was limited now.
Right.
And so I was like, no, you're just going to work around this nylon guitar part that you recorded with this microphone in your living room. And then I'm trying to think. I think I still had the studio. I was like transitioning out of the studio. This was like February. Right. So I recorded the drums. Most of the stuff was broken down. So I had 2 mics on the kit.
Yeah. I was going to ask, one of the questions was about the kit because I love the drum sound.
That's my old 60s Ludwig kit that I've had since Envy on the Coast days.
Yeah.
Never got rid of it, never will. And it is an old like $200, what was it, like a KSM 20 something, whatever the cheap one was, Shure, right behind the kick drum.
Right.
And then I don't remember what kind of mic it was.
Whatever.
It was something in the middle of the room.
Right, just to kind of like get everything else, obviously.
Yeah, that's it. I tried maybe 2 other combinations of things, like just overheads or like snare and overheads. And then when I stumbled upon that one, I was like, yeah, I want everything to feel pushed back but still have some kick.
Right.
And that did it. And so that was the drum sound.
Yeah.
I did a bunch of takes of it and just kept one whole take. I don't remember what take it was, but yeah, I just wanted it to be like one take. And this is what's funny too, is like in finishing that song, I was now out of the studio. I had none of the access to all the toys. I had all my stuff, but it was in like various states of storage in my house. So it was like finishing the song, the decisions that were made were like part limitation and now straight up part laziness. Because if I had to like pull out synths, it was like, oh, damn.
That's a whole process.
Yeah, am I gonna get the Voyager out of the closet? Like, so this is great, actually. My old partner had a Mellotron. I used the hell out of the Mellotron.
Yeah.
It was on my list of things that I wanted to get once I was in another space or once I went back into that one or whatever. But I wasn't there yet.
Right.
So I'm like, all right, well, what am I going to use? Like, what am I going to do? And this whole like limitation thing that I put on myself, what was cool about it is I really want to emphasize that it's about limitation, what I did. It wasn't about being like a purist for analog.
Right.
It wasn't about like me and my acoustic guitar just, focusing on the songwriting craft. Like, sure, it's a byproduct.
Yeah.
But like all the string stuff, the like horn sounding stuff that's on there or whatever, all the stuff that I think you're reading is like score-esque stuff. It's a free plugin by, I think it's Spitfire Labs.
Oh yeah, the lab stuff. It's great.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It was what I had.
Yeah.
It was just what I had at that moment.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is what you have to work. You don't have a Mellotron.
Yeah.
And I'm thumbing through sounds. I'm like, what's the closest thing I can get to whatever this is? And it's slightly weird and slightly off because it's not that thing. It's not the exact thing I would reach for on the Mellotron to
It's not like that Mellotron horn sound.
Exactly. It's something weirder.
Yeah.
It's some like French horn, bee swarm, whatever the hell they call it. And I'm like, cool, I'll manipulate this and we'll get it to do something cool.
For our listeners, like Spitfire Labs is like they make a bunch of free things inside the Labs thing that you can then open up and they're really fun and really weird and really cool.
And extremely limiting.
Yes. It's like they have like a couple things you can do to them.
Exactly.
And it's like, but otherwise like that's the sound.
Yep. You can literally click a tab and it lets you know your 4 parameters, I think, you can mess with.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll get attack and release.
Yeah.
Sometimes not. And that became exciting to me.
Yeah.
Like to like have to make stuff work with nothing. That became exciting. So that song was one of 3 or 4 that was really just taking a demo and deciding like, no, the demo is the song.
Yeah.
That's going to be, we're going to bolster and support the production around this performance that was very much supposed to just serve as a demo.
I mean, the performance tune, I know you're not going to praise your own voice, but like the performance is a lot of your own vocal. And I'm curious, like if you kept the limitations with that, how'd you go about recording your vocal for that song?
SM7 in my living room. I for this one, I still had the studio as I was in the process of leaving. I did do a day with whatever condenser was in there.
Right.
I've had every producer tell me that I don't sound great on an SM7, that I'm better off with the more expensive option, with the U67 or 47 or whatever it is. And then what happens is I've been doing this for a long time and I still cannot figure out how to trick myself the same way that I do when I'm just holding this. Because if I'm holding this and I'm demoing, something happens in my brain that says, no one's going to hear this. Have fun. And so I just do.
I think, dude, there's that very famous Coldplay story that the first album was done on an SM58 because Chris Martin, like, maybe this is what happened with you is that, like, you played live for so long and that, like, you just got used to that. Like, it's like muscle memory at the end of the day, right? And holding a microphone is a thing for people.
Yep.
It absolutely, truly is. My best buddy who we were talking about earlier, my buddy David Arkwright, when he records his vocal, he holds a microphone, but he holds a 103. He's very delicate with it. A TLM 103. It's like a condenser.
Yeah. Damn.
Yeah, but he's like, it's how I record my vocals, and I just like holding it.
Just
and
likes to physically
hold it. He just likes to hold it, and he gets great vocals out of it. But it's a thing I found with like certain singers, especially like he was in bands too.
Yep.
Like people that just like perform live all the time.
Yep.
And now we have so many people that like grew up singing in studios.
Mm-hmm.
I was one of those people for years where it's like because I was always playing guitar or playing piano.
Sure.
So I was never holding a microphone. So actually I hate holding a microphone. It's
interesting.
Super unnatural for me.
Oh, wow. I wish I had that problem.
Yeah, I've never done a performance where I was only holding a microphone.
Interesting.
But even for years though, I didn't like hearing myself in my headphones.
I can understand that.
Because I was so used to feeling it.
Yep.
I was so used to, I didn't have in-ears.
Yeah.
Like until later on in my career. It's like, that wasn't a fucking thing. Did Envy have in-ears or anything? You're just...
The last chapter of it. Yeah. But I never got used to it.
No, it was always such a foreign thing to me where it's like, I just got used to like knowing it in my gut.
Totally.
Yeah. It's like a very interesting thing I've learned.
Dude, and there's something about whatever's happening psychologically. Because on this song, I went and I did 40 something takes on the nice mic and I finished and I listened back that day and was like, in that moment, I was like, you did it, dude. Like, you beat it. And then the next day I listened back and was like, no, you didn't.
No.
Like,
No.
what are you doing?
No.
You know? And and it was like, sonically, of course it sounded better.
Yeah.
Like,
but that's not what, like, listen, I'm all about, I tell people, like, yeah, invest in the nice thing because you want to have it. But at the end of the day, it's always about the performance.
dude, even like, I'm not even an analog synth purist in like the it sounds better thing.
Right.
Like, I will fully admit that if you did some blind test with me, especially in the context of a record, probably wouldn't be able to tell between certain VSTs and the real thing.
Yeah.
I fuck with analog instruments because it inspires me to touch things and manipulate things. You know, like it's a more enjoyable process.
Yes.
I'm not a purist for the sonic. There, of course, I like that too.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean.
No,
you know?
it's like the thing. It's like, it's why I like having my Kemper, where it's like I like playing into something zero latency.
Yep.
You know, it's like I have my real amp for when no one else is in the room, but when I'm in a session, I'm not going to record my real amp. That's insane.
Sure.
So everyone shut the fuck up. I'm going to record this right now. Let's go. But it's but I'm the same way. It's like I like playing real things as much as I can, and it's a real thing. It's just so interesting how it's like we're all so different, but that's the point of the artistic process is finding out how you like to do it.
Yeah. And
not having someone tell you where it's like, well, you can't record your vocal on an SM7 when you have that $5,000 microphone.
Yep.
Like, are you fucking idiot? It's like, no, I don't know. I something happens to my brain when I hold the microphone.
Totally.
And like you said, like, most people can't tell the difference between, especially once it's all mixed.
Mm-hmm.
And also, it's like, you can make something, what am I saying? It's purposeful, right? You're like, the vocal's supposed to sound like this. And no one is going to know how it sounds on a 47 if it was never recorded on a 47.
Exactly.
There's no alternative.
Exactly. There's nothing to compare it to.
Right.
Yeah.
So, like, and that's what listeners and people just know.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're like, I know this version.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
And that's what it is. There's also that famous, Mr. Brightside. Like, that was like the demo. It was like the rough mix. And they tried to redo it.
That's crazy.
Like, I think multiple times. And everyone was like, nah, like, this rough mix is like the one.
Is the one, yeah.
And like, same thing, like his vocal was like overdriven. It like wasn't really meant to be.
All of my shit is overdriven and wasn't meant to be because I'm demoing, right? So like I'm using the UA 1073 plugin, which you can, drive a little bit if you want, or a lot if you want. So I'm not caring. I'm like, oh, I set it to one level. I didn't expect to be belting in the chorus, but here we are. But it's okay because I'm going to re-record this later.
Exactly. You just go into a Carefree everything, like, oh, I kind of like that.
Yeah.
Like, that works. Yeah, dude, I had a vocal. I drive my real 1073 pretty hard and bring the output down for listeners who don't understand that. And there was like a time when like of the singer, like I was coming a little bit too hot and they like clipped it a little bit. But I'm like, I don't know. It's kind of cool. Like, shows your emotion on
totally,
it.
Man.
And it's like, I kind of fuck with it. Also, fun fact, just speaking of the UAD 1073, it's what these guys are running through right now.
Oh, hell yeah.
I think it's like for everyone first starting out, great investment, and it's like kind of the perfect preamp for like the SM7B.
It's everything of the stuff that I've put out in the last year. It's that combination.
Yeah, it's like
I didn't have pre's with me, so it was like, cool. This is what I'm using.
And like that emulation is really solid. Like I find on this guy where it's just like you just bump the high end a little bit, like, and then it's good to go.
Yep.
Really good investment in my opinion, especially on Black Friday, dude. I love that. Yes, you record. I was gonna ask more questions, but it seemed like you just mostly record everything with the SM7 for that one, just for the sake of the limitation.
I think I took out a 57 to do the nylon guitar at first and was just like, because that's what you do.
Right.
And then was like, I don't like this. Like, I'm literally going to do this whole song with an SM7. So I did. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And do you send off the first file stuff to be mixed, or you're mixing that one?
I'm getting it as close as I can, and then I'm sending it to somebody else to mix. Yeah.
Okay.
So
nice.
Warren mixed pretty much everything I put out this year. Warren,
okay. I mean, everything you guys have done together sounds really, really great.
Thank you. He's a great mixer.
Yeah.
He's phenomenal.
When you're setting him stems, like, just whether you're producing your own stuff or just this song, do you like to have like a mix bus that you're going through, or you just let him do mostly all that kind of stuff?
I let him do that, but I've gotten a lot better at knowing what to print and what not to print.
Okay.
Like I just remember being young and starting out and like mixing being a bit of voodoo, or not even that it's voodoo, like you're scared to tie their hands.
Right.
And so you're not sure, like, you want to give them the room to do their job.
Right.
But learning that balance of like, yeah, I want it to be this way.
Yeah,
Like,
it's learning that balance to trust you where it's like, well, no, this is a mixing decision, but it's really a production decision because I want it to sound like this.
exactly.
So I wanted you to like make it sound like this.
Exactly. So I got better at that. So
Yeah.
there's definitely like a clear balance on like, here, do your thing, and then
Are there any like, things that like sit on your mix bus that you're like, ooh, this is what kind of helps make my sound a little bit? Or
Okay, so most recently, a friend of mine passed me, oh God, what is it called? It's like a silly name. I think it's like Music Hack or something. It's a master bus plugin. It's like a master chain thing.
Yeah.
God, I should know the name of it. He passed me that. I started messing with it. As just like a quick, sometimes like when I'm producing stuff, I like
right, you
shit
just want it to sound good quick. Yeah.
Exactly. So I started using it for that.
Yeah.
As opposed to using like Ozone or whatever alternative or your custom sound great, quick master bus thing. And it was the type of thing where I did not realize how much it was doing until I took it off. And it was the type of thing that when I sent both my reference, so here's a great example.
Right.
I took that shit off right away, being like, I'm not going to send this to Warren like this. I'm not going to bounce stems through this thing.
Right.
And he hits me up like 2 days later. He's like, hey, everything sounds great, but like I keep going back to your reference and there's some weird spatial shit happening
Right.
with like some weird low end shit that's real cool and I can't replicate it. Like, is there anything else going on this this bounce? And I was like, oh yeah, sorry, this. And he's like, okay, I need to put that on there and start from there because it's important.
Yeah.
And I was like shocked.
Well, it's like essentially you've made every decision through that plugin. Right. And so it's like, yeah, of course, when you take it off, it's going to be like, what the fuck happened to this song?
Yeah.
That's where like there's like the great debate where, there's like people who are like, you should not rely on your mix bus. And there's people where it's like, well, like rely on it. But I think it comes down to like, if you're making your decisions through it, that is now the song.
Yep.
It's like working through a console. It's like you're running everything through the console. Like that's part of the sound now.
Yep.
And you're just going to have to go through it.
Yep. I think everything I was using prior was perhaps just making everything sound a little louder and squishier. Whereas this was the first like master bus thing that I had or mix bus thing that I implemented that like really did what you're saying.
It's doing a thing. It's shaping it in a certain way.
So that was a learning experience. Okay.
Like I have my mix bus. It's like, it's like 8 plugins, but my philosophy on that is like, it's a lot of that things, but like doing a little bit.
Yep. Small moves.
Right. So if I turned off one, it wouldn't be like this like huge difference.
Sure.
But it's like, enough where it's like, I'm lucky in the sense that I work in Pro Tools, so I just send my mixer my Pro Tools session.
Right.
And they can just like go from there.
Right.
But if I was in Ableton, I probably would print it through the mix bus just because it's like, nope, like I've worked through this. This is what my low end is now going through.
Yep.
Like I have a pull tech on my mix bus and it's like, all my bass is going through there.
Sure.
And that's just the sound now.
Yep.
That's what it is. I want to move on to our next segment here.
Sure.
And this is where I ask you, what's a piece of gear or a plugin, maybe you've already alluded to it a little bit, but something that you've been going back to the past couple months where you're like, oh, you're not really, and it doesn't have to be something new, something that you've had for a long time it could be, but something that you really feel like, oh, this is the thing for me.
This is going to be a boring answer, but like, I mean...
Give the boring answer.
Like I spoke about the drum machine that I use everywhere, and I spoke about the synth that I also use everywhere, which are both sequential pieces that I love, and they're like my workhorse pieces for sure. But, Universal Audio's interfaces are, I feel like being able to go anywhere, like making the decision that I made to leave a beautiful studio space for a year, would I have done that if I didn't have the confidence that I had a piece of equipment that was so simple, but had the like quality that it does in order to put out a record, and not think twice, like, oh, should this have been in, on preamps or this or that, like to confidently leave and be like, this is all that I need. Yeah, like I'm convinced I can make something that people will enjoy with just this. I can't think of a better piece of like gear recommendation for a young producer or anybody. Like,
they've made those other ones like now so much more affordable too.
The Volts,
the Volts, and even like the X2 and the X4. Yep. Where before it's like when I got my first Apollo, like the buy-in price at cheapest was like $800-900. Yeah, and now it's way cheaper. Yeah. Now they give you a Volt if you just sign up for the UAD Spark for a year.
Dude.
So I have a Volt. I literally don't use it.
Just because you signed up.
I signed up and I was like, well, this will be good if I ever travel.
Totally.
But it's good.
Dude, it's the best. And it's like, you know, when you wrap your head around the fact that it's not just preamps, but the conversion, like all your shit's turning into ones and zeros. So if you don't have something to like actually, you know, do that in a way that is artful and I don't know, retaining quality, then, you know, you're in a bad situation.
True. You know, okay, so we're going to go on to our final segment.
Cool.
Everyone's favorite segment. It's called Plug or Unplug. For you and our listeners, I'm going to ask you quick opinions on various plugins, tools, pieces of gear.
Okay.
You hit me with plug if it's something you're into and you really like. Unplug if it's not for you. And you can say like bypass or make inactive if it's something you've never heard of or you've never used.
Okay. I feel like it might be a lot in the bypass mode.
That's fine. Dude, everyone says that. And
then
like,
they know stuff.
They know stuff. And it's like, I'll just give my 2 cents on it.
Okay, cool.
Which is perfectly fine.
Okay.
I'm curious if you use this one because I know, at least with your studio, you were a little bit of a gearhead up until this downsizing. But the Highland Park BG2, their preamp compressor.
No, that's a bypass for me. I have not.
I feel like you would like it.
Okay.
It's like a pretty... This guy, Bryce, he's in Highland Park. He like makes these compressors and these preamps. And they're like... It's been on my buy list forever.
Is it like a rack thing or a lunchbox?
It's a rack thing. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
It's like, you know, they're not cheap. They're like $3,000-$4,000.
Okay.
But
per channel.
But every time I've used one and everyone that I know who has one, they're like, it's life changing. It is the one kind of a thing. They're really, really great. Like really, they're based on like those Altex.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
This is good to know because like, even though I've pulled the plug and I've gone down this weird rabbit hole, I'm like slowly starting to assimilate where I'm heading next. And some pre's are at the top of the list.
Do you know Eric Palmquist?
That sounds very
producer.
familiar.
He was also managed by the Best Friends guys.
Oh, okay.
But he's
Maybe
done
that's
like
why I know the name.
He's done like Thrice's last couple records. He's done the Bad Sons records, but he got me onto it. And like he's like my favorite, like every vocal he does just sounds like how I want vocals to sound. I was like, dude, what do you do? He's like, it's just this thing.
Crazy.
And I'm like, cool. I guess I'll get that.
Yeah.
He's like, it's that. And then he's like, I'll sometimes throw an 1176 on it. Like,
nice.
Cool. Next one. Waves SSL, their G-Bus compressor.
Yes. Plug. We were using that quite a bit for sure.
What do you like to use it on?
I feel like Warren had it on, I don't remember what, but he had it up a lot.
It was just there.
It was just there. You got to remember, I'm the one as
like
part of the duo
who's
just gets to play with toys, and he's the one who has to make my nonsense make sense. So he was the ones. My plugins were more the creative plugins rather than like the sonic,
the utility ones.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He was more the utility plugs, but I saw it up quite a bit for sure.
Yeah. Next plugin. It's Plugin Alliance plugin, but you can also get it, I believe, in UAD. The Mag EQ4.
Never used it.
No, it's a good one. There is a UAD version of it, I'm almost positive, or the EQ2. But they're known for like, they have this like, they call it air or silk. It's like this high end on it that like people really like to go for on certain things.
Just like a parameter where you can add some top end?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
It's like, it used to live on my mix bus. It doesn't. And I'll sometimes like throw it on a vocal if I'm like, I just need a little bit more of like that thing.
Yeah,
it
that
does
sheen at the top of things.
It does it really well. That's like what it's known for.
That's very
It's based off a 500 series unit.
Cool.
Next plugin. This one you might not know, but I'm curious.
Striking out here.
I know I always have a couple obscure because I'm always surprised. Like sometimes people know.
Sure.
And then I get excited. And I'm horrible because I have almost every plugin. It's a real problem. It's research for the podcast. You know,
I mean, that makes sense.
Right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's what I tell my tax guy. How much did you spend this year?
Write it off. This is what I do.
Yeah. Soft Tube's Weiss DS.
No.
Yeah. It's a good one. It's like, it's kind of expensive for a de-esser.
Okay.
But it is the best sounding one.
Okay.
So I'll usually use it, this is for you and our listeners, like I'll use it on a lead vocal a lot of the time. I don't use it on background vocals because it is pretty CPU heavy, but it's like when it's like, you know, like a Pro DS or the Waves de-esser is like not doing the thing.
Sure.
I'll throw that one on. It's like, oh yeah, now it's there.
Gotcha.
Do you like the DS at all, or like what's your normal go-to?
I feel like I'm using, is it Fab Filters DS?
Yeah, the Pro DS.
Yeah, that's probably what I'm using.
Yeah, that's the one.
Dude, I'm very simple when it comes to plugins, and guitar pedals are probably the places that like I most want just something that works. I like went down the rabbit holes for a bit, and it's just, I don't know, it's just the way I create is
they're deep rabbit holes. Don't go in them.
yeah, and like you got to recognize when your shit starts sounding worse, right?
Yeah.
When you're like you're getting excited about something that like is not helping your song. So I just had to recognize it in myself. I know other people, like, it's not trashing any.
No.
Like
Everyone works differently.
Yeah.
Like for me, it's like I like buying new plugins because I like being inspired and I like
Totally.
new toys and it gets me excited.
Dude, totally. I have a buddy who's
Yeah.
exclusively in the box, and how quickly he's able to create and his like plugin arsenal.
Yeah.
I like marvel at it and like wish I had that thing, you know?
Yeah,
But I'm just different.
It's just fun. I've been lucky lately where it's like I've gotten in with like a couple plugin programs,
Hell
like
yeah.
companies where it's like I'm actually spending less now.
Yeah.
But they're like, yeah, like here you go. I'm like, sick. Like,
That's good.
I'll take it. Next one, it's a piece of gear.
Okay.
The API 512 preamp.
I've used it a bunch in studios
Yeah.
over the years, and yeah, I feel like that's just like a workhorse. Like
Workhorse, great for guitars, great for vocals.
Totally.
Also, another really great preamp for the SM7. Fun fact I found.
I actually remember at the beginning of my songwriting production world journey, I was in a studio in Manhattan, and the producer had done that first Miguel record, or maybe it's not the first one, but the one that's got the bigger songs on it, or like what broke him. And I really loved the guitar sounds on that record. They're just great.
Yeah.
And I remember asking him, like, what the hell are you doing? And it's just a Strat through an API.
Yeah, that's what it
It's just
is.
like, really? That's what's doing that? And he was
Yeah,
like,
it's sometimes it's just like the Strat, the most basic guitar is
Yeah.
just like it just in a preamp DI.
Yep.
Like it just does a thing that I'm assuming you're like me, like I'm an amp guy.
Yep.
And you get so used to how an amp sounds. And again, it's kind of what I was talking about earlier, where it's like, ooh, that's different.
Dude, totally.
So I like it.
It's the grass is greener thing. And I
Yes.
even go through it myself. I remember
Yeah.
being in Rock World.
Yeah.
As a kid, you're like, I have to have a tube amp.
Yeah.
Right? You're like,
Yep.
it's
Say,
got.
of course. I
Right.
spent too much money on it.
And then I like fall in love with Nine Inch Nails and go
Yeah.
down that rabbit hole as a teenager and find out that like everything that he did was like, I want everything to sound broken. We're not touching tube amps. We're using Zoom guitar pedals straight into the board.
Yep.
And I'm like, that's the sound. And that inspired me for like 2 years. I didn't touch a fucking amplifier.
I just got it's right there, the JHS. I forget what it's called. It's like the bot. You see the pedal right next to my.
On the board?
Yeah, I think it's.
Oh, I was looking in the wrong spot. Oh, yes.
Oh, the color box.
Yep, color box. My guitar player who I just played with for my shows,
Yeah.
I think he's got the color box.
Yeah,
or
and it's
something
like kind of do that thing. It's like kind of replicating, like going like right into like a console
Yeah.
and driving it, and it's like,
There's something about it.
yeah. Whenever I bring it out in a session, I start playing. Everyone's like, "What the fuck is that?" I'm like, I don't know. It sounds shitty. That's why it's cool, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah, it's fun. All right, next plugin that I'm going to ask, we ask on every single plug or unplug because we get wildly different answers.
Okay.
CLA vocals. Right.
All right. How do I answer this? I'm going to answer this while plugging another plugin.
Great.
Okay. UA just recently put out a plugin called Top Line.
Top line's great. I can edit this out if you want, but I know you and Maris did like the thing for it, right?
Exactly. We did the commercial.
It's good.
It's awesome. When I first, like, because I worked on the commercial for it, they gave me like early access to the plugin, and they were like, mess around with it. You're going to be writing the commercial. And my first thought was like, oh, cool. This is like the new CLA vocals, except it also has a tuning functionality. Like it, and I was like, well, you can't really knock CLA because for years
it was what everyone was using.
Exactly. You'd end up in rooms where like you'd be shocked that the producer would pull up CLA vocals, especially if you're following him on Instagram and all that. You're like, that's where we're going.
That's your vocal size. Yeah, man.
So like, and I used it as well for a long time. And then I don't know, I haven't touched it in a while because I just had other stuff or got comfortable with other stuff.
That's what ends up happening.
Yeah, but I don't knock it. And then when I went to use Top Line, the more I used it, I definitely felt like Top Line has a lot more to offer than CLA.
It has significantly more to offer.
Totally. But I did like that it reminded me of the feeling of using CLA in its simplicity.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like
it's a great beginner or singer-songwriter tool. Especially, I mean, to talk about Top Line a little bit, like I just started using it and I was really blown away at the efficiency. I've been using it on like ad-libs and I'll just kind of what you're talking about. I'll just go through the presets just to see if like we get like a happy accident with something, and I'd like, you can't really do that on CLA vocals.
Totally.
But this, because Top Line has so many different options there.
Dude.
And you can actually go in and like tweak it, in which CLA vocals you can't.
Totally.
Which, again, could be a good thing sometimes. But
totally. I couldn't agree more. It was very interesting because the whole concept of what we did with Maris was like, they called me to make that commercial.
Right.
I'd never directed a commercial before.
Yeah.
Like, that was crazy. But I immediately was like, okay, like, if they're going to let me cast it, like, Maris was the first person who came to mind.
Yeah.
And then when we wrote the treatment for it, it gave me a reason to utilize Was It a Dream?
Right.
And then I wrote the concept around that song.
Right.
And it gave us the opportunity to reproduce the song 2 other ways to
Right,
exemplify
to get the thing, which is really cool.
And then they were, UA is a great company that's just like very founded in integrity, and so therefore they let me know like early on, like, if there are vocals that are being heard in this commercial through songs that you're making, they need to go through Top Line. Like, that's
fair, great.
Yeah, they were like, that's important to us, and I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like, okay, let me go back in and like make sure that these go through Top Line. And so I had to utilize them, and then had the opportunity to A/B to my former chain, and especially on a bunch of backup stuff with like the spatial stuff. And
it's great.
Yeah, the air knob, like getting a little bit of that top end. I was just like, oh yeah, we beat it. We beat what I had on here with this plugin, and I was really excited about it.
No, it's really amazing that you got that opportunity. I remember I saw it because like I think Maris posted about it before. Like, I saw that you posted about it, and I was like, oh, sick.
Yeah,
like,
it was wild, man. Yeah, it was probably the most fun thing I did this year.
Yeah, and I still see the the Instagram ads every 5 seconds.
That's awesome.
So it's nice. Well, dude, I've taken up far too much of your time.
Oh, no.
Thank you so much for doing this. We've been ending the podcast this season asking our guests to give a quick little piece of advice to up-and-coming producers, artists, something you wish someone told you like 10 years ago.
Yeah. I'm going to say trust your gut. And that sounds so simple, but it is so important. Yeah. It's so important. It's like what you said earlier of like just in which sessions to take. Yep. What you like, what sounds you like. Like, we just sat here talking about a bunch of gear and methods. Right. If you're listening to this and none of that resonates with you and you've got some other weird way of doing shit, do that.
Don't work with Ryan.
Exactly. It's just like, do you, like, and don't be afraid to do things wrong and weird, and don't look at your neighbor and wonder if you should be doing it that way. Yeah. Like, I love learning from people. I love doing sessions to learn from other producers and other people and amass knowledge, but don't be afraid to embrace all the things that you do in a strange, weird way, and trust that gut.
Dude, I love that. To our listeners, make sure you follow this guy on social media. It's first Vows, and Envy is still releasing some stuff every once in a while, right?
It's been a while.
Yeah, but
we did.
But anyway, just follow this man. He, like I said in the intro, he's like inspires me, and I'm sure he'll inspire you as well. Thank you again for being here.
Dude, thank you for having me. It's truly my honor.
Take care, guys. Thanks for tuning in to Producer Points. Your support means the world to us. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, rate, and share with fellow music enthusiasts. For an encore, check out our Spotify playlist featuring all the songs we've discussed on the show, giving you the perfect soundtrack to your creative journey. Additional audio and video editing for this episode was done by Nathan Rebello. Until next time, this is Justin Gamella.